Hello friends, a very good morning to you. This is Moses Waribo. We have in our midst a very erudite congressman from the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics, Mr. Precious Udo. He's the zonal coordinator of ASUP in Zone D, who also is representing the national chairman today for the election that will be holding in the Federal Polytechnic of Oil and Gas. We also thought it wise to bring him on set to hear some words of wisdom from him, and we believe you would also learn a lot from the conversation today. Join me to make welcome on set Mr. Precious Udo. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, my brother.
Yes,
how do you do?
Very fine.
Great.
Yeah, so we like to know what your journey was to Bonny Island. How was the journey? Because a lot of people have a series of experiences.
Oh, thank you. Interestingly, I am not somebody who is aquaphobic. Okay. Again, also, it was a nostalgic feeling for me yesterday because I was in this town about 11 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, coming back to it through a good boat ride. It was lovely.
Okay,
I enjoyed myself.
So you didn't have any challenge with the sea?
It was smooth ride.
Okay, you had a very smooth ride.
Correct.
Okay, we would have loved to have this interview section with you after the election was done, but time would not permit us, so we thought to also catch you while you're available. So we'd like to first of all know what's your forecast for the election? What do you see the election turn out to be like? Bearing in mind that this is the first election that will be holding for the seniors, the Academic Staff Union of Polytechnics. So can you forecast? Do you have any forecast of what you think the turnout is going to be today?
Well, I don't want to forecast the election. I want to forecast the chapter after today. Okay. Because from what I saw yesterday in the manifesto presentation, I must say I was impressed with the quality of the congressmen and women as seen in the questions thrown to the contestant, as also seen in the presentations of the contestants. And if you were there yesterday, for me, the climax of that event, the high point of that event, was the eventual withdrawal or stepping down of the other candidate contesting for chairman. For me, he started the winning process. He started what I called laying a united foundation for the chapter. And with what I foresee as a smooth takeoff today, I see that chapter becoming stronger to be able to play its role, not just in the institution, but also in the committee of chapters of ASUP nationwide. That's my view.
Okay, so there was a step down of the contestants?
Yes, in fact, somebody stepped down for chairman, and that's the biggest office in contention. Okay. And there are two candidates as at the time of manifesto presentation. And one of the candidates said, hey, this guy has the same capacity that I have. Why are we fighting over this? Let me defer to him. And that's sportsmanship. I salute his courage.
Okay, yes, you see that as an advantage, but I would also like you to see it from the flip side.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind that we know the importance of constructive criticism in politicking and in the governance of a people. So do you think that him stepping down is a way of strengthening the union? Don't you see it from the perspective that there's not going to be a constructive criticism which will also downplay the performance of the man that was going to emerge today?
No, I see it from the positive side because the person stepped down didn't step down out of weakness. Okay. He stepped down out of conviction that this person is also pursuing what I'm pursuing. One of the things he did was handing over his own 15-point agenda to the guy. Okay. And say, you should do this. I am still a member of the Congress, meaning that he will also be there to say, this is part of the reason why I stepped down for you. You are not doing it. But like I said earlier on, that Congress I saw yesterday is too vibrant to be taken for granted by any leader. That's the truth.
Okay, so you think that, also, anyway, I believe the largest thing, this is going to make your job easier.
No, no. You know why it's not going to make my job easy? Yeah. By virtue of the provisions of our Constitution, the votes must count. Even if you are a lone candidate, you will still be voted for. Okay. If you have more negative votes, you will not be a declared winner.
Okay, so that's a serious development
Yeah.
on our side.
Yeah.
We are glad to get that information as well. But we'd like to also make you have a review of perhaps your process as in the career of unionism. Is this your first position you've held in the union? Can we have an overview of what the process of your leadership has been? A brief one.
Well, generally, I've been a comrade right from my secondary school days. Right from my secondary school days, I recall I led a protest while in secondary school over some conditions in our hostel then. And then I entered into a tertiary institution. I became a student union president. And in ASUP, I became an officer of ASUP in 2009. I joined ASUP as a general secretary, served 2 tenors, became a chairman, served 2 tenors. And in 2019, I was elected zonal coordinator of ASUP Zone D. Zone D comprises of the 11 states of South, South, and Southeast. So all the technical institutions and polytechnics in these zones, I oversee the unions in those institutions. So it's been a journey I cherish almost.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have had series of union leaders come on set here to tell us their bitter experiences. Some of them say they get to be threatened. Some of them say the process comes with sometimes arrest. Can we hear from you? What has your experiences been, your regrettable moments, and perhaps your most pleasurable moments? Has there been threats on your part, and how did you get to handle such situations?
Yeah, honestly, I must tell you there have been threats. In fact, if you say you want to be a union leader, you should be ready for that. It is part of the job. But one thing a union leader must always do at all times is to ensure, one, that you are pursuing what is actually the welfare of the people you are leading at all the time, and that you are pursuing it in accordance with the rules and laws of Nigeria, in accordance with the rules and laws of the union. When you do that, you find out that that solidarity is there for you because you've not gone outside the rules of engagement. Even in Nigeria, there is a Trade Labor Act that also specifies what you should do as a unionist. Talking about regret, yes, I would say I've had regrets. Not really as because being a union, but sometimes you are at the forefront fighting. You look back, you discover that the people you are even fighting for, many of them has gone back. I have been threatened by the DSS. I have been arrested several times. Even at the time the armed security men attempted stopping me from entering into the campus, but I insisted. Because as of that day, I said, there is no letter of suspension, there is no letter terminating my appointment. Why should I not get into this? It was a heated thing, and eventually I was allowed into. So it is part of the thing. But for me, there are strategies to make you see if you can acquiesce. But as long as you are focused, as long as you have the mandate of the Congress in whatever goal you are pursuing, you will always pull through.
Okay, so that's like a hope for the executive members.
Yes. At all point in time, never pursue your selfish goal. Pursue the goal, the resolution of the entire Congress. That's what keeps you going.
Okay, that's a good one. One thing I'd like to find out is we are aware that the rector is empowered to give appointment of offices to members of the academic board. But if at some point you as a union observe that the rector appoints a candidate that is not credible enough in the availability of more credible candidates, what is going to be your position as a union as regards such issues?
I think my worry there is the word credible, because how do we operationalize the word credible? Is it in terms of qualification, yes, academic, or is it in terms of morality?
Sometimes in terms of character as well. You can have somebody who is academically qualified, but you think that his character does not suit handling such positions. Because we've had series of some members of union come to us complaining because of one or two of our interviews that the rector is appointing people who are not credible. Meanwhile, they have more credible candidates. So we want to know the position of the union. Are you empowered to actually look into such issues?
Yeah, let me say this. The laws are clear. We're in an academic setting. Every office has certain qualification required. And the books of rule have also stated this qualification. The issue of credibility is subjective, very, very subjective, because one, something you may interpret as not being credible, another person may see it as being credible. And that is why the rules have said, hey, for you to acquire such a position, for you to become a head of department, you shouldn't be less than a senior lecturer, so to speak. For you to be in this office, you shouldn't be less than this. And if an appointee has not followed or is not qualified, it is incumbent on the union to say, hey, the appointing authority, this person is not qualified. This is what the rules say. This is what the qualifications are supposed to be. From our check, this person doesn't have this qualification. Remove him. But if you are not talking about credibility, you should have a proof. Okay, there is a record that this person embezzled resources somewhere. Why would you appoint this person as a bossa? There is a record that this person is not ethically balanced. This is the record in the last place that person worked. Because for me, it's not enough to accuse somebody of not being credible without a proof. Because sometimes this may not be true. But where you have such a situation, it is incumbent on the union to point it out and provide the proof.
Okay, so that is to say the union has the powers to be able to point out to the rector.
Sure. Thank you for the word. To point out.
Yes, that we feel that to a large extent this person should be, his character is questionable.
Sure.
Okay.
And you make references to why you are saying so.
Okay.
Yes. There is nothing wrong about it.
Okay, we're doing this because we believe that this is a pioneer union, and obviously the words of wisdom coming from you would obviously give them a kind of a light on areas of their jurisdiction as it has to do with the power that is going to be bestowed on them today after the inauguration. Okay, one other thing we want to find out from you is we have had situations where a lecturer is requested to always be around campus. Want to know if there are laws that backs up the lecturer from not being available on ground when he doesn't have a lecture, or is he supposed to always be on ground? We want to understand the conditions of the sound.
It depends also the conditions of service and the status of your employment. If you are employed on full-time basis, the condition of service requires you to always be at the place of work. Okay. You understand? Granted, yes, by virtue of our duties, you are not expected to be in class all the time. You are not expected to be in the laboratory all the time. Sometimes there is that leverage that you may not be there, but let us not mix it up. A part-time lecturer is a part-time lecturer. A full-time lecturer is a full-time lecturer. Apart from being in class, apart from being in the workshop, apart from being in the laboratory, there are also administrative jobs expected of a lecturer. I know of an institution where lecturers are not expected to go home with the answer booklet. You should do it in your office for security reasons. So in such situation, it is actually the relationship between the union and also the management, and also this understanding by staff. Because sometimes, if you allow that, you see staff becoming truant. You see staff absconding from their duty posts only to show up on the payday. So, if you're a full-time staff, yes, you are required to be there. Even though your job may not be every day, but you are required to be there because you're a full-time staff. You are not a part-time staff.
Okay, so we get that bit.
Yeah.
But I also want to know how the conditions that surround, because I know that there are staff, there are lecturers who could be on full-time basis, but still have secondment in other institutions. We want to know what is the condition that should surround a lecturer that can go and lecture in a second institution. What is the conditions that surrounds him? What gives him that approval for him to go ahead to do that?
One, there is nothing wrong about it in academic setting. For a lecturer to be doing part-time here and doing full-time here. But for you to do part-time here on a working day, you need permission of your employing authority. Except it's on a weekend when it is your private time. You can do that. But if you're a full-time staff in an institution, you shouldn't be using the time they are paying you to also be in another institution. Except they approve you do that. Because sometimes staff may be needed to go and do secondment in another place for a specific period. Of course, the authorities is aware of it. But that of you doing it on your own is wrong. It is very, very wrong. Let's tell ourselves the truth.
Okay. I think that's a word of wisdom a lot for the ESCOs that are coming on board and also our viewers out there.
Thank you.
About a month ago, we know that your union is affiliated to the Nigerian Labour Congress. About a month ago, there was a planned protest by the Nigerian Labour Congress against the fuel hike from the federal government. But at some point, we hear that the planned protest was suspended, not jettisoned, as it were. So we want to know the circumstances that surrounded the suspension of that planned protest. Did you have an agreement with the federal government? What is the hope for the common man out there that has these expectations of fuel hiking price and all that?
Honestly, looking at the issue of fuel, yes, NLC, which ASUP is affiliated to, resolved to go on strike if the federal government goes ahead with the removal of subsidy. But along the way, the federal government reversed itself and said we are no longer removing subsidy for now. And that was the reason why we wanted to go on strike. So there was no more need to go on strike for now. And if you, like you rightly said, we suspended pending further reaction. But if you are looking at the issue of petroleum sector holistically, we discover that we need to do a lot. We need to tell ourselves the truth about that sector. Because everything in this country depends on petroleum. And I keep saying, even in class and outside class, that, listen, we are paying so much for subsidy. I support subsidy because it helps the system. But for goodness sake, part of the reason why subsidy, the amount of money we are paying for subsidy, is because we are consuming so much. Let's look at it this way. If you solve the problem of power sector in Nigeria, you will solve half of the problem of petroleum. Because virtually 90% of homes in Nigeria are running on generator. Industries are running on generator. Even the common saloon operator is also running on generator. But if there is electricity, you will see that the demand for petroleum products will also drop. Even the pipeline vandalization thing is as a result of demand. But if the demand drops, you will pay less for subsidy, you will import less. You will focus on other areas of the economy.
So this issue of electricity seems to be a big dilemma in the government.
That is the basic challenge.
Series of people in leadership get into power, promises are made, we're going to handle the issue of power, but it seems to be a big problem. What do you think can be a solution to handle this thing? Because it looks like it's an unsolvable issue for decades and running.
Yeah, it looks a Herculean, but it is not a problem as far as I'm concerned. Chinua Achebe says something, that the problem of Nigeria is three.
It's what?
Three.
Okay, three.
Yes. He said leadership, leadership, leadership. And that is the truth. Everything in this country is centered around the leadership. How sincere are the leaders? How focused are they? How well-meaning are they? Is the issue of electricity something mythical that we cannot solve? No, we can solve it. But are we sincere about it? Are we dedicated? Are we committed to solve it? No, we are not. Because one, people have diverse interests here and there. People are the ones supplying the fuel. People are the ones supplying the generator we are using in this country. Something happened during the time of Goodluck, and it was amazing. I think that was when they launched another stage of the NIPP, National Integrated Power Project. And after about 2 weeks, you saw generator importers and dealers paying a courtesy call on the president. I was amazed. That's it. I was amazed. Yeah. So the man who imports over 1 million generators into Nigeria every year will not like you to have electricity because his business is going to be affected. So, but when you have a leadership that is committed, that is firm, these things can be handled. The affairs can be taken care of while looking at the greater good for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your national body, you're representing the national president of ASUP.
Yeah.
And we know that at every point, your national body always sees how to support the interests of the branches.
Yeah.
To ensure that their demands are met.
Yeah.
So at what point will the national give up the support on a branch and tell them that on this particular issue you're on your own? What are the things that a branch can do to warrant such a neglect from the national body?
At no point does the national leadership forsake branches. At no point at all. But again, this is ASUP Constitution and Code of Conduct. And it is expected that all officers who swear by the provisions of the Constitution are expected at all times to follow the provisions of this constitution, to follow resolutions of higher authorities in the union, to also reach out. Yes, like the earlier question you asked, are there threats, there will always be. But then, when you are found following the rules, the union stands there for you. As of today, I know there are about 7 court cases in different chapters. It is being bankrolled by the national body. Even some of them that were on suspension, some of them that their jobs has been terminated, the union has been paying some of them for about 2-3 years now. But that does not mean that chapters should become reckless. Chapters should do things without seeking for. For instance, one of the provisions of our constitution is, for a branch to go on strike, you must get the approval of the national leadership. Why? Let us know why you are going on strike. Let us know if it is worth going on strike. Let us know the strategies you want to use. Let us see if the engagement of higher bodies can also make management to do your bidding before you go on strike. The constitution doesn't stop branches from going on strike, but you should get clearance so that issues like this you are raising now comes up. We will stand there for you. Even when chapters make mistakes, national leadership doesn't abandon them.
So even if we know that before a union leader or union executive becomes a unionist, they are first of all the public servants.
Sure.
Tenets of public service. Sure. So if your unionist by any way violates the rules of public service and is found wanting, and at the end of the day the management of the institution wants to penalize them for any reason, what is going to be the stand of the union?
Well, the union is a legal entity. The union is not an employee of any management at all. And if the union, as a legal entity, have done something wrong, follow it legally. But if members of the union, officers of the union, who first and foremost are employees of an organization, go against the rules of the organization, let them also be tried in accordance with extant rules, not by whims and caprices of the management. I've always said this wherever I go for election. I always tell the ESCO, unionism doesn't give you a cloak of immunity. Unionism doesn't say as chapter chairman you shouldn't go to classes, you shouldn't do your job. Unionism doesn't say as chapter chairman you should confront the management and use derogatory words on them. No. ASUP preaches responsible unionism. And at all times, we also do in-house cleaning. One of the things we do every year is that we call our chapter leaders to a refresher course and update them, because we're in a dynamic world. Things are changing. Therefore, once in a while, we come together and do peer review. Part of what we do every quarter is zonal, national meetings. And these meetings are more or less peer review, because chapters are expected to say, this is what has happened in my school in the last 3 months. And you will see fellow chapter chairmen discussing that issue, say, okay, similar thing happened in my school. This is how we handled it. You understand? But at no time, at no point, does the union encourage its members to behave irresponsibly, to behave like rascals? You see, radicalism is not rascality. You can be radical, but at all point in time, pursue what is there. And that is why at no time should you, okay, I am union chairman, I've acquired power. If rector do, I will threaten him. No, you are still an employee. After serving your tenure 2 years or 4 years, you will still return back to where you are. So, union leaders are admonished at all times to be responsible.
Okay, that's a word of wisdom for our viewers out there, especially the new executive council that's going to be inaugurated today to office. The union has always requested and demands and pressing for the needs of their members from the management of the institutions, from government. I'd like to throw this question to you, that if today you are appointed to be the Minister of Labor and Productivity, what efforts and what policies will you put on ground? What moves will you make to ensure that the educational sector is properly put in the right footing?
All the Ministry of Labor does is to say, okay, look at this, look at the demands of this. What are you saying? What can you do? Part of the problem in Nigeria why we always have incessant strike is because agreements are not honored. ASUP is on strike again. Why? Honor the agreement he entered into with us just how many months ago? That's the problem. It's not as if they are making a fresh demand. They are saying, hey, you signed this, the federal government, you signed this, you will do this. Honor it. We've given you a year.
But don't you think that it is the requirements and the requests from the different unions is also putting some pressure on the federal government? Maybe perhaps that's why they're not able to implement as...
I want to agree with you also, but then it's also because the government is also not sincere. Because if you are sincere, hey, I make 50 million naira every month, lecturers, and you're asking me to give you 60 million naira. Hey, I can't get 60 million naira because this is how much I make. But as of today, even the federal government have not called us to say we cannot fulfill that. Has federal government said we cannot meet ASUP demands? They have not said so. What is wrong in calling ASUP to say, look, we can't meet your demands in view of these realities? Because part of the problem is that unions are always seen as being on the other side. Most times, management and government don't see union as part of the system, as stakeholders in the system, and open up. Because it will be foolhardy for a union, for me to be demanding from you 5 naira when I know that your worth is 3 naira. But sometimes I know that your worth is 50 million naira because I see things you do in other sectors. I see the money you spent in things I don't consider important to national education. Come to campuses. Where are the facilities?
So that is the way saying that you to a large extent, the union thinks that federal government is not prioritizing the educational sector.
Perfectly. The unions are not demanding what is impossible. The government have the capacity to provide what the unions are demanding. Besides, some of these demands, most of these demands are not personal. Hey, equip our labs. How is that personal to the lecturer? Do you understand? Provide furniture for lecturers. How is that personal for the lecturer? Do you understand? Because when this system thrives, the economy booms. I've always maintained Nigeria will continue to suffer development polemitis until we take education serious.
So you are saying you're requesting for government provide these, do furnitures. There are funds that are normally allocated already to institutions, as it were. Do you think that the heads of institutions, who are the CEOs, are managing those ones that are already sent to them enough?
I want to say to a large extent, yes. What are they even sending to institutions? What are they? How much are they sending to institutions?
We also hear from institutions of fraud.
Yes, that's why I say to a large extent, I'm not saying everybody is doing it right.
Yes.
To a large extent, yes. You understand? But then, let's also look at it. The government have the capacity, have the machinery, have the institutions to also monitor if what they are releasing money for is being done. It is not the job of the union. You understand? Because sometimes some of these releases are made even without the union being aware. So they can't even raise an alarm. But the government is releasing the money. They know what they are releasing the money for. It is also incumbent on the government to see, we gave you 50 million naira to erect a workshop on mechanical engineering. Let's see what you've done. And if you come and see, hey, this person have not done, what have you done to him? I won't want to mention the Polytechnic, but last week, the ICPC sentenced a former rector, a former bursar, a former registrar, a former internal auditor of a state-owned polytechnic to 3.5 years imprisonment in this South. Just last week. You understand?
That's in a way saying that some of the institutions are not properly managing the funds that are...
Some of the individual managers. Let's not bring it down to the issue of institution. Okay. You understand? Yeah. It could be a particular management. During their time, they didn't handle things well. You understand? Another management will come in and start handling things well. So it is not really a function of the institution. It is actually a function of the present management or the management as at that time when the act was committed. You understand?
Okay, I think that is well noted and observed. So, on a closing note,
Yes, sir.
we'd like to know what your advice is, your core advice is for the ESCOs that are going to be inaugurated today. What is your word of wisdom for them before we finally close the curtain for today?
Well, one, they should be conscious of the fact that they just have a new baby. And the way they nurture the new baby will determine how that new baby is going to grow up. They also have to be conscious of the fact that this new baby is collectively owned. Not by them, but by everybody who is giving them mandate today. And at every point in time, there is every need. It is very imperative that the views of the collective owners are always sought. Most union leaders have made mistakes. Most union leaders have lost their job because sometimes they took steps, actions that weren't authorized by Congress. And when management now say we are sacking you, you see that the Congress will not really react because the decision, the steps you took was not actually Congress authorized. So when they are conscious that they have a new baby, when they are conscious they have a challenge to nurture this baby to survival, to growth and wonderful development, when they are conscious of the fact that we are representing people, when they are also conscious of the fact that they are stakeholders. I told the deputy rector of this school and the members of the management yesterday something. I said, listen, when we talk about welfare, that unions pursue welfare, in actual sense, what unions are pursuing is the welfare of the organization. Because every unionist is aware, if this institution survives, I will survive. And that is why you see sometimes when management is taking decisions, like you pointed out, maybe corrupt cases, maybe structures are supposed to build, and union is shouting. I've had a rector ask me, why are they asking about that? Is that in salary? I pay them salary. Why should they be interested whether the bidding was big? I told him, sir, you got it wrong. Because our chapter chairman then was suspended. Because their survival is dependent on the survival of the institution.
Exactly.
So every union leader should also have this at the back of his mind. And above all, unionism should be done following the rules.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much
You're
for the
welcome.
time. We appreciate the words of wisdom from you, and we believe to a large extent our viewers and your newly inaugurated ESCOs today would take a lesson from the words of wisdom today.
Thank you.
We appreciate the time with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Many thanks for attending.
I'm grateful.
Yeah, bye.
Yep.